Glittering snitches, waggling wands, grasping a massive weapon in your hands and waiting for a kiss at the tip of the tower. It can only mean one thing. It's time to look at the LEGO Harry Potter, Star Wars and Disney sets retiring by the middle of this year. We'll also check out the ROI forecast over the next 3 years based on the RRP. I'm not a financial advisor, so it's up to you to roll those dice, but now let's get started. Beginning with Star Wars, first up we have the Millennium Falcon number 75257, and frankly I think the best non-UCS Millennium Falcon that we've actually had, including the latest MIDI scale from the Starship collection. I do still think that this is best, however, having first been released back in October of 2019, it has been out a long time and it's time to wave goodbye to it. Now with a retail price of £150, $170 and €170, this actually has a 25% return on investment forecast over the next 3 years. However, more importantly than that, I just think that this is a great one for collectors. We can't all afford the massive UCS Millennium Falcon. It just takes up so much space as well. But this is something else. A reasonable size set with a pretty good amount of detail for what it is and a decent minifigure lineup. A couple of which are still unique to this day, most notably Lando. Now it's not unusual to find this discounted. I've covered it quite a lot in my Deals of the Week videos. And with that in mind, I would definitely suggest picking this up if you haven't got it already before it disappears in the next few months. Next up, it's the turn of one of the helmets, this one being Darth Vader's, set number 75304. Retail price in the UK is £70, it's $80 and it's also €80. Now, this is probably my least favourite out of the entire helmet collection, unless of course we count the Dark Trooper, which technically isn't even a helmet. There's too many stickers on this one and the mouth just completely ruins it for me. Nevertheless, the helmet collection overall was obviously a great thing, and if you're wanting to complete it, you're going to need to have this one. It is, after all, one of the most iconic characters, probably the most iconic character in all of Star Wars. Now, it's probably because of that it does have a 28% ROI based off of that RRP over the next 3 years. There are still going to be lots of people who do want to get hold of this, who miss out on it at this particular moment in time, despite all of its flaws. That said, you definitely do not want to be one of them, so as a collector, this is kind of a must to complete that helmet collection, especially if you're going to have all the Diorama series and now the Starship collection as well. So don't miss out, cause like everything else on this list, by the mid of this year, it's going to be gone. Next up, we've got one of my favourites, Mos Eisley's Cantina. This is 75290. The Master Builder series, and boy, this truly is an absolutely amazing set. But it also comes with a hefty price tag, £345, $400 and €400. But you know what? It's kind of worth it. That said, there have been discounts on this. I've recently shown you where to get 15 to 20% off of it here in the UK as well as over in the States on my Deal of the Week videos. And there are still some places you can pick it up at a bit of a discount. Do not miss out. This is really something quite special in my opinion, and any serious collector is going to want to have this. Now, for that reason, as an investment, it's not shabby either. Forecast is 35% over the next 3 years, and that is definitely not to be sniffed at. But seriously, if you are missing this from your collection, you better start saving, because this is going to be going soon and it is definitely one you don't want to miss. Then we have the UCS R2-D2. Now, this actually has the same ROI attached to it, 35%, but I think that could be damaged. We're going to have to wait and see how it goes, but obviously we've just had the new one that's just been released in March. Much smaller, but still pretty nicely detailed. Kind of think it's done damage to this one, especially because of this price tag up here, £210, $240, and the same in euros. That's a lot of pay for this little droid. So obviously, for those of you who are wanting to collect all of the UCS sets, you're going to need to have this. But otherwise, for a heck of a lot less, you can get this, the new one, 75379. I just think it looks really good. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Will you be getting this over the UCS one? Do you have the UCS one and now think that actually you'd prefer this? Discuss it down below. But now let's move on. Yes, it is now the big one, the AT-AT. This is 75313. God, this is really cool. It's one that I don't have, frankly, just because I don't really have the space. I mean, obviously, I could find a piece of floor to put it on somewhere, but with 2 dogs, I don't think this would survive that long either. It'd probably become the next chew toy. And it's jolly expensive for that at £735 and a whopping $850, €850. But my goodness, it is a cool thing, isn't it? I think for me, perhaps just behind the Death Star, it's what I associate most whenever anybody just says Star Wars. Now, because of that initial high price tag, it's put it out the reach for many, and because of that, the investment forecast on this over the next 3 years is 38%. Yes, that is the average. 38% over the next 3 years makes this a good investment just based off that RRP. And it has been possible to pick it up for less as well. So this set definitely is something special, and if you've been wanting it, time is running out to get it at retail. So better raid the piggy bank or take out the second mortgage on your home, because you might need to. But thankfully, we now have something quite a bit cheaper. This is the TIE Bomber 75347. Retail price at £60, $65, €65. And it's a decent little set, very swooshable, obviously nowhere near as detailed, but it's not a bad thing. And the one thing I will say is the likes of the TIE Interceptor, that was around for quite a while, but then in the run-up to retirement, it disappeared off the shelves. People then couldn't get it, and there were quite a few people who missed out. Don't let that be you with this. Very similar thing I think could happen as well. And it's also got a 38% ROI attached to it, so not bad as an investment piece either. I know it has split opinions a bit, but personally, I have always liked it. And don't forget, it is a 40th anniversary edition of Return to the Jedi as well, and having that on the box always helps. Then we've got Boba Fett's Starship, okay, the microfighter. Obviously just a cheap little one. This is 75344, priced in at £9, $10 and €10. One of the cheapest ways to get a Boba Fett minifigure, which is technically a unique one. Now, obviously, it's nowhere near as detailed as some of the others, but still a pretty nice minifigure. And to be fair, this overall build is pretty decent. It's good fun. Obviously, in their marketing, yes, they're aiming it for children, but I'm not ashamed to say I would definitely be caught playing with this as well. It's a nice little thing. Now, it does come with a 40% ROI attached to it, obviously, for such a cheap set. Obviously, that's nearly null and voided, but while it's not really going to be desperate for any collectors or for investment, it's certainly a fun one to have in the collection. And you know what? For that minifigure, I definitely think it's worth it. But then, for those of you who are also Brickheads fans, Tusken Raider will be retiring by the end of the year. But disappearing before that is Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. This is 40547. Obviously the normal twin pack price being £18 or $20 and €20. And I do really like these. I am a Brickheads fan, I admit, but I do think they've been done well. Certainly Darth Vader's helmet here looks a whole lot better than it did in the actual helmet collection. Not that I'm sore about that or anything. But the ROI attached to this is 55% over the next 3 years. Not surprising for a Brickhead, really. They generally do tend to do quite well. And very simply, if you are a fan of the Brickheads, you're definitely going to want to add this to your collection. Bear in mind that LEGO do sometimes discount these quite heavily in the run-up to retirement, generally around the 30% mark. So keep a close eye over the next few months and you may well be able to pick this up at quite the bargain. Now moving on to Harry Potter, we've got Hogwarts Chamber of Secrets. This is 76389, retail price £130, $150 and €150. One of my favourites actually out of this particular wave. Obviously, the biggest point of controversy out of these particular sets is how they decided to switch between the green to grey roof tiles halfway through, which, you know, is just a sort of irritating and stupid thing that LEGO tends to do these days. That said, this particular one does give us a nice minifigure lineup. It's also the one that gives us the old Voldemort minifigure, as well as a pretty cool Basilisk and just generally a decent build. It's a good size, looks nice on display, and there's a lot of playability to this one, which is why it's definitely one of my favourites out of this particular wave. Now, I'm clearly not alone in that either, because the forecasted ROI on this one is 30% over the next 3 years, which is pretty decent. That's just based off the RRP, remember, and you have been able to pick this up at quite the discount up to now as well. So whether you're a collector or an investor, this is one that I would say you should sit up and pay attention to. Now, another one from the same wave with the same ROI, but with the different roof colours, which you do kind of get away with, to be fair, on these ones because it's Hogsmeade. But, you know, it's Hogsmeade Village Visit, so this was a nice one to get. A couple of small little buildings, a little bit too small really in a way, kind of misses out on some of the details, but reasonable minifigure lineup. It's nice to get something which gives another nod to Hogsmeade, as well as obviously just the train station. Now, obviously for collectors, if you are wanting to also get those gold minifigures, this one grabs your Ron Weasley, and it definitely was one of the better sets in the wave. Now we've got the brickheads of Harry Potter and Cho Chang, and again, these are pretty nice ones, obviously, in this particular one. Harry's got the snitch in one hand and wood in the other, and obviously those ridiculously oversized glasses, but I do genuinely think these are nice figures. They've done them well. I really enjoyed this entire series, actually, of obviously Draco and Cedric, Kingsley and Nymphadora, and all of them will be retiring by the middle of this year. Now, quite conveniently, they also all have the same ROI attached to them, 35% over the next 3 years, normal price for twin pack brickheads, so again, always pretty reasonable for investment, these ones. But also, for the brickheads fans, you got to have these added to your collection, it just has to be done. But then last but not least, for the Harry Potter sets retiring in the next 4 to 5 months, we've got the Astronomy Tower. This one has a 36% ROI attached to it, and it is a super set, filled with lots of little details, decent minifigure lineup, makes for a good display piece, but is also just great fun. Now, the retail price on this one is £90, $100 and €100. But it has been regularly discounted and you can still pick it up for around 20% off here in the UK, as well as in the States and in Canada, and nearer 25% off currently in the EU. So if you haven't got it, don't hesitate, go and grab it. It won't be long until it's gone. And now, I kind of have to mention this one. It's Disney and Cinderella and Prince Charming's castle. Yes, it's mini dolls. Yes, it's a 5+ set. And yes, despite the minute 365 pieces, it is £75, €85, and 90, count 'em, $90. Stupid price, just absolutely bleeding ridiculous. I'm not a fan of mini dolls. They are done quite nicely, to be fair, these ones. What I like best of all is Lucifer and Gus Gus. And look, oh, you get a sweet little butterfly as well. I mean, that makes all the difference when it comes to the high price tag, doesn't it? Despite that, it's still forecast well, apparently. 21% ROI over the next 3 years. So not that well, but definitely not too shabby, considering that that's based off the RRP. Now again, that's the average from the normal sources, which are generally right about this sort of stuff, but I do question it. I just think that's really high. This is an overpriced set. Alternatively, if pink is more your colour and you fancy spending slightly less, then Aurora's Castle may well be the one for you. This is set number 43211. Does come with the Maleficent mini doll, which I've got to say, probably, bearing in mind that I do not like mini dolls, it's probably the best one that I've seen. It's actually pretty decent looking. I think they've done a pretty good job with that, to be fair. Anyway, still a pretty high price given the piece count, but again, some nice colours going on there. Anyway, £40, $45, €45. 3-year forecast on this one, 22%. It's not a particularly good ROI attached to it, and obviously not really going to be one for collectors either. Would make for a pretty good gift though, and a discounted price. It's always going to be wanted by someone. So if that happens to be you, it's also retiring by the middle of this year. What is a lot better though is Cruella and Maleficent again in brickhead form. This is 40620. Once again, the normal brickhead price for a twin pack in your region. And this is a good one. While it is technically one of the slightly odder pairings, bearing in mind that these two don't ever appear together in one of their films, they are naturally iconic villains, and they've been transformed into brickheads really, really well. I think they're absolutely super. Now, they have a 37% ROI attached to them, and I think that's actually quite minimal. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out to be more once 3 years has rolled by. Then we've got Moana and Merida. Moana obviously from Moana and Merida from Brave. Now, these two really are a very peculiar pairing. It's just odd that they've put them together. Perhaps that's why they've flown under the radar a little bit, because actually they're pretty good brickheads. Whilst the faces are obviously lacking some of the character that others have, the hair has just been done wonderfully on these. I just think it's absolutely super. Obviously, price-wise, again, same, normal for a twin pack brickheads in your particular area, and it's got the same ROI attached to it as Cruella and Maleficent. But these brickheads, they've definitely got something about them to me. I think they've been done really nicely. Once again though, definitely look out for a discount, especially the Disney related brickheads tend to be discounted heavily in the run up to retirement. So within the next sort of 3 months, expect to see those discounted by 30, maybe even 40%. Before they disappear within the sort of next 5 to 6 months' time. And then with a 38% forecasted ROI, it is Moana's Wayfaring boat. Now, if you've ever listened to my Deals of the Week videos where I've covered this before, you'll know that I am a fan of this set. Whilst I don't usually like mini dolls, these ones have been done nicely, and this boat overall is just beautifully put together. I love the sail, I love the colours, it's got nice parts usage. Everything about this just ticks the box for me. I think it's actually a really beautifully done set for a good price, okay? £30, $35, €35 being the retail, and yeah, you can get it with quite a healthy discount as well. Now bear in mind that 38% ROI is pretty solid. It's probably only going to go upwards considering that we've got Moana 2 coming out, as well as the live-action remake of Moana next year. All that means is that while we'll almost certainly be getting more sets, demand for previous ones will be going up. So I think this is going to make for a pretty good investment, and whilst it might not be the normal sort of thing that collectors would look at, I would urge you to look again, because not only is this a fun little thing, it just looks really good as well. It's probably one of the nicest 6+ sets that I've seen LEGO do in a very long time. But of course, let me know what you think in the comments below. That brings us to the end of the Star Wars, Harry Potter and Disney sets, which are retiring around the middle of 2024. Of course, there will be more retiring by the end of the year, and things can always shift around, so check the comments below for updates. Please consider liking and make sure to subscribe, because I'll be covering other themes retiring by the middle of this year in upcoming videos over the next few days, and of course, closer to the time, all the others that will be retiring before the year is gone. Thanks for watching, catch you next time.